Hello, this is the Shoddy Strawman, back at it again. Today we're going to be going over the Little Cup Council's quick ban of Flittle. They also have some other stuff on the radar, so I'll be discussing that as well. But, first and foremost, what made Flittle so broken? Well, by their own reasoning, they say, to the uninitiated this may seem surprising. And that's not uncalled for. Its stats are really, really bad. It has 265 base stat total, which is really, really bad. Very, very small. It's got some pretty paper defenses, although it's got a good speed stat and alright special attack. Everything's pretty bad all around. If you look at Giraffe Rig in comparison, it's got almost double all of its stats, which is pretty crazy. But why is this getting banned instead of something like Giraffe Rig with a strict BST? Well, as the council says, it has the ability Speed Boost and the move Stored Power. So what that does is that Speed Boost will raise your speed for one stage at the end of each turn. And then you also have Stored Power, which gives you a plus 20 power boost for each of the user's stat boosts. So it'll start out as 20 base power, but then if you get a Speed Boost, you'll have one boost, so that means that your Stored Power is going to be at 40 base power. And then if you had, in addition to this, Calm Mind, which raises your special attack and special defense by 1. If you use Calm Mind, that means that you get an additional 40 base power. So what that means is that you can keep on boosting up really, really fast. Well, not really fast, as much as you snowball really well, because Speed Boost gives you speed, so that means that you can't be outsped, so that means that you can't use a Choice Scarfer or like a Rufflet or a Pawniard in order to be able to deal with this. You keep on getting boosts from either Calm Mind, Speed Boost, and then the base power of Stored Power goes up to 100, 120, 160, keeps on going higher, 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 and you are also boosting your special attack and special defense at the same time, so that means that even if it's like, oh, well, it's only a Psychic type move, I can just go into Giraffe Rig and resist it, it'll be fine, I can then crunch back. You can't, because Calm Mind boosts your special attack, making it even more ridiculous. Alright, so Calm Mind to boost with this combination, Terra types to destroy Dark types. So, the funny thing about Flittle is that outside of Terra Blast, it's got nothing in terms of special coverage. Literally everything is special. So you got Stored Power, Psyshock Psychic, Disarming Voice, you're not using Disarming Voice, Confusion, Psybeam, Swift Uproar, but doesn't really help you all that much. But it's got like no coverage moves. So you think, oh, that make it balance, but as it said, no, you can just Terra type into, you can do Electric, so that way you have practically no resistances, practically no weaknesses. You can do Fighting, so that way you can break over Pawniard. You can do Fire if you want, because sometimes Tinkatink's running around, it's a bit annoying, so in order to be able to remove that really effectively, you can go Fire. And all of this is making sure that Pawniard or another Dark type can't deal with you anywhere near as well. So that's pretty dumb. And because you're boosting up your special attack and special defense, it's going to be hitting really, really hard. So even if you're trying to check it with Pawniard, you can't. And then, as they also say, in just enough bulk to roost and passively boost its primary attack, Flittle is at best extremely centralizing and at worst extremely broken. Yep, this got roost. I don't know why they decided that this needed to get roost, but they removed it from a lot of Pokemon and made sure that it was only 8 PP so it wouldn't be anywhere near as broken. And yet it's still broken because it gives you 50% HP on a mon that normally shouldn't get it. Hooray! So even if you wanted to chip it down and make it worse, like, oh yeah, you know, I can just do like 50% to it, and then I can go into, I don't know, like Giraffe Rig or Pawniard or whatever. It's like, okay, cool, on the Switch it can still roost up, undo all of your progress, and it's still really bulky because it's got Eviolite. And you can't knock off Eviolite because there's only 7 knockoff users in the tier right now. So, good luck dealing with this. Alright, and then also, Flittle excelled with screen support and is often superfluous, and Flittle remained extremely strong with minimal support. So if you wanted to, you can run Impidimp with Light Clay, not Light Ball, Light Clay, it's not a Pikachu. And it's got Prankster, and it's got Reflect Light Screen. And then also you can do Parting Shot, and Drain Punch to possibly break over the one check that it really has in Pawniard. And it just got really, really ridiculous, because Reflect, Light Screen, Parting Shot, Drain Punch, in addition to having already really stupid amounts of power, made it even more broken. And then you can still run this on a balanced team if you want to do like, oh, well, I have like Girafarig, Pawniard, and then also, so that way they can't even check this even more, I have Glimmet, which has a Toxic Debris, so that means that if your opponent switches in, that means that you can like roost off a turn. They are no longer at full HP, so if they have a Focus Sash, then you can break through that. You have Stealth Rocks and Spikes to also break through Focus Sashes, but also to wear down the opposing team even more. And then also you have Mud Shot, and then you can do... This also gets Memento. Wonderful. So even then, like, oh, well, don't worry, I can use my Toad School to get rid of this Glimmet, so I'm going to switch it in. And then it gets Mementoed. And then Flittle just gets a really, really free setup. Because what are you going to do against it? Like, cool, knock it off? Cool, that means he gets, like, 2 Calm Mind boosts and also 2 Speed boosts. Good luck trying to revenge kill this nerd. So, overall, it got really, really unhealthy. Alright, so now that we're going over that, what else is on the radar? Rufflet and Girafarig. So, the reason for that is that Girafarig has got absurd amounts of set diversity. High attack, high special attack, really good bulk, 70, 65, 65. Like, if you look at Flittle, it's 30, 30, 40, significantly frail, but then Girafarig has got significantly more, and it's got other base stats. It's pretty fantastic. And then it's got Reflect, Light Screen, Wish, Thunder Wave, and then also if you run a physical set, you can do Psychic Fangs, you can do Earthquake, Crunch. It also gets access to the new move Trailblaze, which means that your speed is boosted by 1 stage after you use it. And the reason why that's important is that it'll up your speed from 19 up to 28, and that means that you can outspeed Scarfers like Pawniard, which would get up to 24. Rufflet would also get up to 24, but then also there's Mankey, and that would get up to 25 with max speed. So it makes it really hard to revenge kill outside of priority. So you can run that on it with a pretty good attack stat, but then you can also run a nasty plot set. Even though it's not great right now, because most of the time you'd much rather have coverage, but you can still run it. And then you have Psychic. You got some other coverage moves. You can run Dazzling Gleam in order to hit Pawniard without Terra typing. You can do Terra Blast, and then Terra Blast Fighting if you want to do that to break over Pawniard. You have options there. You can also do Calm Mind, Rest, and then have Early Bird as your ability, so that way you only have 1 turn that your opponent can exploit on you. Just like in Gen 3, when Kangaskhan did Rest Early Bird stuff, it can be really hard to handle. And then also, for some reason, it gets Light Screen and Reflect too. Hooray! So it's got a whole bunch of stuff that it can do, and it's really obnoxious. Also, most of the time, the best check to Girafarig is other Girafarig. It's got a normal Psychic typing, and it really likes running either Psychic. You can also run Twin Beam, and that's specifically for Focus Sash Limit Lead, but it's pretty cool. You can do Psychic Twin Beam, but you also get like Psychic Fangs in order to remove screens, and that means that if you are running, if your opponent is using Psychic or Psychic Fangs, you can go to your own Girafarig, take the hit, and then hit back super effectively with a Crunch. One moment. Alright, there we go. And then it's also got Sap Sipper, so it's got an immunity. So that means you can't use Grass-type moves into it, which you would kind of like to do, because there's a lot of water types running around. And if you could use that a lot more lively, then that'd be pretty cool. But you also don't know if it's going to have Sap Sipper or Early Bird, so do you really risk going into a Sap Sipper, giving this a +1 attack, and then it uses Trailblaze, and it's essentially got a Dragon Dance and is primed to sweep your team? I don't think so. It is really, really, really powerful, and I would say very centralizing. Over-centralizing? I would say yes, but we'll have to see in the future whether or not it is. That's all my thoughts on Girafarig. I also have another video on that, but it's a bit outdated because Misdreavus is banned, and it's more balanced than it was before at a minimum. Because what would be really annoying is that Pawniard would have to deal with Girafarig and a Misdreavus, in addition to any other stuff that your opponent's running. But now you only have to deal with one really strong special attacker, especially now that Flittle's gone. So Is it balanced? We will see. I'm thinking no, but we're going to have to see how the meta turns out now that Flittle's gone. Next up, we have Rufflet, and I think this is just straight up ban-worthy already. And like they did say, like, oh well, it's on the radar, and we're not sure whether to ban it yet, or at least it's on the radar. We're thinking about it. It could be, couldn't be. We'll let you know. But the main reason for that is that you have 2 sets that you can run. You can run Bulk Up, Roost, Agility, Terra Blast, Ground on Rufflet, and that's really annoying because you can bulk up to get really, really bulky, make you hard to defeat, and then you can also get Roost. How is it that even though these PPs got reduced so that way they're not even half as usable, they only have 8 instead of 16, they're still so good. Oh, goody. But then you also have Agility, so that means that you can outspeed everything because it gets 16 base speed. So if you get one of these up, your opponent can't even use Trailblaze on... So Trailblaze on Girafarig to be able to outspeed it doesn't work out, because then you're faster. But then also you have Terra Blast, so that means that when you Terra type, you get into Ground Stab, which means that if your opponent's running an Electric type, that can just get bowled over. So it's going to be really, really obnoxious, and it also has the ability Hustle, which means that his attack is 1.5. Now, obviously, the accuracy is bad, but it has ways of getting over it, and even then, it's not really reliable from a defensive perspective, because if there's an 80% chance that your thing just dies immediately and you can't do anything, you can't do too much about that. And the reason why I say, like, oh, well, that's really important, is because you can also run a Choice Scarf set because it's still got a really good speed tier. And you can run Hustle, and you can even run Aerial Ace and then Terra Flying if you want to make it even more powerful. So you can do Aerial Ace, Terra Flying, Hustle, and you'll always hit your attacks. You functionally have a Choice Band and a Choice Scarf when using Aerial Ace. And you also have Terra Flying, so good luck trying to wall this. And then to make it even worse, it's got Brave Bird, which has double the power. So even if you're like, oh, you know, Aerial Ace isn't that bad, it's only 60 base power, I can deal with it. Nah, it can use Brave Bird, and it's fine. It can just break over stuff. Oh, but it's got a Stealth Rock weakness. Oh, it doesn't matter when it can just... Like, even if you get Stealth Rocks up, it can basically claim every single time that it comes in because of how strong it is, because you can run max attack really reliably. And then it's got a good enough bulk, 70, 50, 50. It's pretty alright. And then also you have U-turn in close combat to be even more tricky. It's like, oh, well, you know, I'm going to go to my limit because Rock Poison, that means I can at least, like, take a Brave Bird and I can set up some spikes. Like, okay, yeah, sure, but then I U-turn out. And even if you try to come in on a resisted Brave Bird, I can close combat you and then it's no longer resisted and that's like a 2-hit KO. So that can't be reliable. And then it's like, oh, well, why can't I use Marionette from previous gen? The main issue with that is that, A, Diglett exists, and it's actually pretty good right now, because when is it not good? You got Arena Trap, and then Earthquake, so that means that your opponent has to lose their Marionette if this comes in. It also has to deal with the fact that Girafarig exists, and it's a Psychic type. It really likes seeing poison types. And even if you're like, oh, well, it's fine, I'll just run Fungus instead, so that way it can't be trapped as easily. Well, then it's food for Rufflet's Aerial Ace and Brave Bird. And even if you want to do your own Terra, like, oh, well, I want to do, like, Terra Steel or something, so that way I can resist the Fighting type move. Alright, well, then that just turns into a 50-50, because what happens if Rufflet predicts, oh, well, they really need this Rufflet gone, I'll just close combat instead of going for Brave Bird on this, because it's probably going to Terra, and then it's gone. I think it's very unhealthy and very uncompetitive for having to force a whole bunch of 50-50s and being the best Scarfer in the tier that has no real checks. Like, oh, Glimmet, it can resist some hits. Like, yeah, but its main purpose is hazard setting. And although it's got like okay bulk, 48 HP and 42 defense is not really all that much in the grand scheme of things. And when this is coming at you with functionally 27 attack, and at best you're having like 21 defense, it's not going to work out. Otherwise, I think things are pretty balanced. At most, we have to worry about is rain, and the reason that we have to worry about rain is because there's a lot of rain dance users. We have Weasel back, and it's got bulk up. People are just really concerned about this because it's kind of like very easy to plug and play with rain because there's very little water resist. Oh, but if you have Fungus and Marionette, then maybe it'll be a lot more manageable. But they're both currently unviable because Rufflet and Giraffe Rig. Well, Marionette's better because it's not a flying weakness, but like you still don't want to run this too much because Giraffe Rig can just run circles around you. But like Weasel gets bulk up, and then you have Wave Crash on it, which can be really dangerous because it's 120 base power, plus it's coming off of a decent 65 attack stat that is boosted even more if you're running a Life Orb, and it's also in the rain, plus it's Swift Swim, and it's got an absurd speed stat, which means that you can't outspeed it, which means at best you're going to have to Revenge Kill it with priority, and then it's also got Aqua Jet, so if you're thinking that you're going to use Sucker Punch, then you can't, so what can you do there? But then also you have Psyduck now as a new Swift Swim user because it's got Nasty Plot, and then you can do Surf, Ice Beam, and then Psychic. And it's still going to be really strong. Now, obviously, it's like, oh, well, these are both poison types. That's not going to be great. Well, yeah, but they also have, like, really good special bulk. And at a minimum, like, Marionette can probably use Haze if it wanted to. And that would at least stall out some turns of rain, and that'd be it. That'd be alright. And then you can also run, like, a good amount of special defense investment anyway. But also, Fungus can do Giga Drain. It has Spore. And although it's like, oh, well, it might die to Psyduck really easily. Okay, yeah, but Psyduck really needs that boost. And it can't just freely set up on a good amount of things. We'll have to see how it shapes out, because what makes Rain kind of bad is it doesn't have an auto setter, but it's really strong because there's a lack of water resist. Maybe it's broken, maybe it's not, we'll have to see. Like, this is, like, I'm really unsure, because Giraffe Rig and Rufflet are significantly more overbearing than anything else. But overall, I'm liking how healthy this meta is. It's like almost there. It feels so close to being able to be just fine that we don't have to worry about this. The meta will finally stabilize, and then we can start doing analysis, and then we can start doing recommended sets. Oh, that'll be so nice, so that way we don't have to guess about whether Toadstool is running defense or special defense, or speed, attack, or special attack. There's a lot of variance with some stuff, but I'm happy how this is shaping out. And thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Hopefully this has been helpful in your understanding of the metagame, and you'll understand why this decision was made. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.